As some of you may know, I love musicals. And one that's been stuck in my head recently is Ride the Cyclone. After one of the characters, Noel Gruber, sings a revealing and provocative songs about his dreams of being a woman of the night in post-war France, his classmate Ocean complains that his story was not about anything real and wasn't worth telling because it didn't have a lesson. She then breaks into a song in which she claims that every story's got a lesson and dismisses any story she sees as overindulgent and non-educational, such as her classmate Misha's favorite movie, Saw 5. The idea that Ocean is trying to convey is that a story is only worth telling if it has a clear-cut message. Given her established beliefs in social Darwinism, I feel like that makes sense for a character such as herself. However, I feel that she's misunderstood her own motto. When I hear the phrase, "every story has a lesson," I think that every story, no matter how seemingly insignificant or nonsensical it may be, has a lesson to teach us. My partner Agni and I often purposefully watch critically panned movies and TV shows, and afterwards we discuss with each other exactly why we think it was hated so much and what the crew could have done better. Sometimes we come to the conclusion that critics just don't know what they're talking about, but oftentimes we find that there are very good stories from talented writers and directors that are victims of bad acting and the time it was airing and whatnot. An example of this being the disastrous 2018 TV reboot of Heathers. The show was delayed due to real-world circumstances and ended up being heavily censored when it eventually aired in the US. Luckily for us, there are ways of finding obscure media, and eventually we found our way to the original unedited series. It was bad. For the longest time, I couldn't figure out what lesson it was trying to teach, especially since it had deviated so far from the plot of the movie it was based on. Then Agni told me that instead of thinking of it as a reboot, I should think of it as its own separate story, perhaps even a sequel of the movie. And that made things click a bit more for me. Don't get me wrong, it's still bad. The acting is terrible. But that made me start to understand the message the writers were trying to convey and made me appreciate the series a bit more. Ride the Cyclone has its own story to tell, of 6 teenagers learning to appreciate their lives after a freak roller coaster accident takes their lives. It's a story I enjoy watching over and over again, each time appreciating the songs and characters more and more. Ocean's character actually reminds me of a younger me, down to thinking that some stories didn't deserve to be told. But all stories, no matter how bad or poorly executed they may be, are worth telling.